Good morning, everybody. John Spielkel here from GAI Insights doing the GenAI News Briefing today. We have the core team of diehards here with me and Paul and Ankaj. So we're going to bring some interesting news to you today. There's everything from a massive announcements by Google and Intel all the way through a set of research looking at new models to create understanding of screens on phones. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's going to drive us through the articles today.
Oh, great. Ankaj, you want to kick us off the first one, please?
Sure, Paul. So the first one that we have today is from the Google Cloud Next 2024 event that is taking place in Vegas. So there are a lot of announcements that Google has made in this event, from Google Vids to Google new Imagen model, Gemini Code Assist, generative AI features for Google's Workspace, and a lot of other features.
John, I think you were assigned this one.
Yep. Yeah, I thought this is. I think this baby's essential. There's a tremendous amount of new material here from our friends at Google. The competition for AI Inc., as you were saying, Paul, is just heating up. But this is a number of things that are available in their existing products, as well as new capabilities. The video one in particular, I thought was pretty impressive in terms of your ability to simply pick different component parts and then create a sales video in practically no time. So I would say this is essential for our AI leader to really understand, what Google's got out in the marketplace and how it compares to the rest of the tool set available.
That's good. Tim, are you convinced this is essential?
I was on the border because most of this has been announced elsewhere, including the video stuff, and a lot of it's not available yet. But I'll go with John on this one, just because it is Google and there's so much in this that they are announcing, including new chips and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's a quick review and probably worth going over.
Great. So I'm leaning essential as well. So let's go with that. And Ankaj, next one, please.
Okay, the next one is from Intel. So Intel had recently launched Gaudi 3, and now it has introduced a new open system strategy for enterprise AI, where it is collaborating with SAP, Red Hat, VMware to provide an open platform for enterprise AI.
Awesome. On Intel? Yeah.
So this
Were you
one,
on this? Huh?
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
This one, again, I think you got to rate it important just because Intel is still a fairly major manufacturer, and there's a whole series of announcements in here. The highlight is the new Gaudi 3 chip available. They're competing with the H100. Okay, so they're 2 generations behind already compared to NVIDIA and others. So to me, they're still playing a long catch-up game here. But there are great improvements here in both performance and efficiency. There's also new chips for data center servers, standard kind of Xeon servers and such. So some interesting announcements. I give it an important. But chips are coming is the good news in general. And as the chips get stronger and more powerful and more power efficient, and the models get smaller and more efficient at being trained and doing the inferencing, the chip problem that we have right now will start to abate, I think, over the next few years. But it takes a while because it takes so long for these chips to get out. And there's still a long second, third place player at this point compared to NVIDIA.
Yeah, great. I want to welcome Nick Pope, a guest rater. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Nick, we're just viewing this recent announcement by Intel. Did you get a chance to read it? And do you have a view? Is this important, optional, or essential for our AI leader?
I went on important, right? I love that Intel is continuing to push in this play, continuing to push in this market. And it was an interesting read this morning on the GAI 3 and just what those capabilities are. So just a quick high-level overview for me. I found it one of the more riveting of the articles this morning.
Great, good. Sounds like important. Ankaj, next article, please.
Yep. So the next one is from AMD. So AMD, they have launched a second generation Versal chips to make AI faster at the edge.
It's a chip day here.
Yeah, it was. In fact, interesting that AMD found a way to make an announcement on the same day Intel had their big
Funny.
show and announcement. Shocker. But interesting again. John's long talked about the power to the edge. This is an example of it, where these are specifically designed for embedded system applications, very low power, and pretty darn high throughput from the at least from what I read here. So interesting stuff. I would call this optional for most of our AI leaders, unless you're in a business that uses a lot of industrial edge-based systems or IoT or things like that. So if you're a Bosch or a BMW or something like that, this is pretty important, and I'd rate it important. But for the average enterprise, this is probably just weekend reading if you're interested.
Yeah.
Optional.
John and Nick, are you guys optional as well?
Yeah, I was optional. I mean, where this compares in my mind to the Intel one, Intel lays out so many more things that they're doing in partnerships and so forth. This is, a speeds and feeds announcement for the edge chip that they're doing. So I think it's optional reading, except for, as Tim said, if you're, if you are deploying these in your product, then probably a good idea to read it.
One of the, just a footnote, C10 Labs is one of the AI funds here in Boston that's associated with MIT. And one of the startups over there is working on software to help companies be able to switch from chips. Their view or their analysis shows that because of software and hardware so much tighter integrated here, to switching off the NVIDIA chip is absolutely non-trivial. And there's actually real chip lock-in risk here in a way we haven't seen in some of the other tech waves. Great. So optional. Next one, Ankaj, please.
Yep. Next one is a research paper from Apple titled Ferret UI. So basically, it provides a new interface on top of the typical mobile interface for LLMs to make sense of mobile's user interface.
So I had this one this morning. Overall, I went optional. I thought it was very interesting. It was a cool read about how they split apart the mobile screens, how they tackle it, using, grounding, reasoning tasks. I think there's a lot of potential to this. But again, it's at a very early level, and still a lot more applications to come out with it. But very interesting to see. And I think this is going to be key on a lot of these phones that we're going to see coming out, and just how the actual AI automation and agents are able to see and interface with a wide range of UIs on all the different apps that are going to be on our phone. So I think it's optional reading, but it's going to come more and more prevalent as these devices start landing.
Nick, when is the Apple developer week or day? Is that June?
June,
June, I believe, right? For some reason, the 16 sticks in my head, but I could be making it up. That'll be a big day for sure.
Yeah. Great. Optional.
Optional, yeah. We had this story a week ago without the research paper, just a high-level kind of press release thing. Obviously, Apple makes a lot of phones, so they're very interested in being able to sort out what's on the phone. And so it is interesting, I think. And I think there'll be a lot of focus on this for mobile devices to help sort out how to run applications autonomously and sort them out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, how do I think of this in the tech stack? Is this like a interface manager? I mean, is this,
like a screen scraper?
Yeah.
Probably the way to think about it.
So it's a smart screen scraper.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to modify existing applications and dig under the covers, because that takes forever, even with phone applications.
But I think that another, I guess some footnote, Charlie, today. Another footnote on Apple is that people may have read or seen last month. Berkshire Hathaway has gone negative, so he's dropped a lot of his holdings in Apple. I saw a chart where they counted how many times he mentioned Apple in each of his yearly shareholder letters, and it was like 25 or 30 a couple of years ago, and I think this year it was 1. So it'll be interesting to see if this gets all these announcements, anticipated announcements, helps this Wall Street crowd believe more. Great. So optional is next one, Akash, please. And I'm sorry, Harvey, thank you so much. Online notes that the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference is June 6th through 9th. Thank you, Harvey.
So the next one is from Dairyland Cooperative. So a very sort of surprising place for GenAI to be playing a role. But this a Midwestern utility, they are using generative AI to automate document summarization and also manage their power grids during storms.
Yeah, I had been assigned to this. I actually ended up putting this as important just because it was a utility, and my experience in utilities, they go slower than a snail. And this is an example of somebody who's rolling out, and I think not so much a document summary, because I think everyone's doing that, but they're actually starting creating some synthetic data for some of their actually grid operation stuff, which I think is a step forward in that field.
Yeah, I was leaning toward optional just because it doesn't have a lot of data. It looked to me like Microsoft put the arm on CIO Magazine to publish this thing.
I wish there was a little bit more about what they were doing with it. There was all sorts of hype about how much they were doing, but very, very little detail on actually what they were doing. To your point, Paul, it's interesting that it's a kind of a very mainstream utility in the Midwest, cooperatively owned. It's about as state as you get.
Yeah.
But so little data, it's just hard to get much out of it.
But the Microsoft products, they couldn't have done it. They couldn't have done this without.
Couldn't have done it
without Azure. You need 365.
The interesting thing would be if there really is some gain here. If they really wrote a good article. This points out that most new technologies are often better for the most state institutions because they give them a lot of leverage. So it's hard to say that because there's so little data here about what they actually do, but get yourself one good experienced technologist and you can leapfrog a lot.
Well, let's go with optional. Maybe it was combined with a Microsoft ad buy in CIO Magazine.
Well, on the right-hand side here, and you can see, will Microsoft do AI?
There we go.
There you go.
Great. Optional it is. The next one, please, Akash.
Okay, so the last one is about a new federal bill, which could require disclosure of songs used in AI training.
Yeah, this is a potentially important step, but I think the Congress is so split, it's going to be very difficult to get it passed. But it's going to put Congress people in a little bit of a hot seat because they want to support artists. Hollywood, at one level, the far right hates Hollywood, but at another level, they're powerful and visible, and they're also represent all sorts of other people that get disenfranchised by this technology. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. I don't expect legislation out of this because, again, of the divided Congress, but this is an interesting proposal, which is you got to make your training data transparent.
What are your thoughts, Nick?
It was interesting to me, right, when I originally saw the title, but then I was like, oh, it's from Billboard, right? So that explains why they're really focused on the AI.
Yeah, it's about all content, not just about music.
It definitely was on all content. So it'll be interesting to see if, again, I think it's just another approach of trying to get the genie proverbially back in the bottle. I don't know how much legs it'll actually have to give people financial repercussions for training on all this data. Specifically, song lyrics is a really difficult one for me in general on the subject of the actual article. But again, I went optional. It's good to read. It's good to be aware of. But at this point, I don't see any major changes coming through from this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
I mean, Schiff represents District 30, which includes like a bunch of music. I mean, he's got to put
California
this
guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, a particular part of California guy.
Yeah.
Like and so he's right there in LA, and his district includes Burbank, and it's like there's no way he can't put this out there.
Right.
So John and I are traveling together. We're in Miami for some meetings this week, and now we're in Minneapolis. And John, do you want to share your thoughts on what could be an opportunity for a politician on the anti-AI front?
Oh yeah, I think if you were to put together a political coalition of the people who are going to get injured by AI, I think that it's a beautiful. I think an enterprising young politician could go heavy against big tech and align themselves with a bunch of other people who are going to be hurt by big tech, and I think get decent funding. I think you do weapons, you do food, you do traditional media, and I think it'd be a message that I think there's going to be a big AI backlash on not in the commercial side, but on the societal side. And I think if and when we go into recession, I think a lot of people are going to start to blame it. You see, Trump, I think, is leading the way, but he's not going to be the only one that's going to start blaming AI for all kinds of things.
Yeah, and think, John, when you blame it, it doesn't really talk back, right? So
yeah, no, I think they'll be using AI to blame AI, so it'll be kind of funny.
That's right.
Exactly.
Well, before we do summary, Nick, give us any updates on you. What are you seeing out there that's really impressing you in the AI world?
I'm really excited. So again, I'm focused on the franchise front, primarily the clients that I work and train with. And I know there's a couple big clients that are planning on going live with some big tools. Specifically May 1, there's a couple conferences that we have coming out where they're expecting to have some good ROIs and really have some good case studies of how they've deployed in a larger scale. So some of those early adopters, it reminded me of the article for the utilities company, right? Like they're right there, but my sense is they don't actually have that hard data on that improvements, or else those would have been in the article. So I really think we're going to start seeing a bigger storm of this next wave of these companies that had early adopters in key positions. So I know for myself, I'm excited for the next couple of months of really being able to get some hard, tangible data from some of the brands that I work with to be able to continue to push for more people to jump on board.
That's fantastic. So Nick,
and can I just ask Nick a clarifying question on the when you say franchises, you're talking about McDonald's, Wendy's, and so forth? Or are you also talking about?
I generally work with slightly sort of that tier below those monolith type organizations, right? So there's an organization right now that I'm working with, they probably have, 20, 30 people in their corporate structure. And they probably have, a good 300, 400 franchise units out in the ecosystem. And you're rolling out with Cassidy AI as a major platform that they're going to be leveraging and really rolling it out. So it's really exciting, sort of in those spaces to be able to see the tangible. So very similar as far as the speed of that adoption can be a little tricky in franchising due to the model and sort of that strange hierarchy that they tend to have.
Sure. Fascinating.
That's great. Well, good. Well, let's Nick, thanks for joining us. Dr. Harvey Castro, if you're still listening, I'd love to catch up for coffee when you're in Boston. And so today we had one essential, lots of news coming out of the Google Cloud conference, and one important with the slew of important announcements on Intel getting in the game, albeit maybe 2 to 3 steps behind NVIDIA, but putting its mark that it's in the game and others are optional. So thank you, everyone, and we will sign off. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody.